Hey, chicken suckers, you are tuned in to the Free Matt Podcast, the world famous libertarian economics slash whatever social roundtable discussion. Unfortunately, I'm Matt Freemat, sober for the night.
Very unfortunately.
The man over there, 2 beers deep. The man on my constitutional left, right here, Magic. It's like that painting. Was it the Sistine Chapel? The reaching up to God. It's if you didn't know, that man I was pointing at is the one and only General Patrick Flynn.
How y'all do? How y'all do?
Without him, we would have no oppression. You're like, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. You're like, that's not your claim to fame. Anyway, folks.
Rotate that mic just a little bit. The blue light's right in my eye. No, just rotate it where it's facing you. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's on my face. Yeah, like this. I can just talk to it now. Is my woodwinking? Yeah, that's even better. That sounds wild.
Woodwinking.
Woodwinking. Is that like a fetish or something?
I started to say, is that a new porn position?
Woodwinking. It sounds like a fetish. It's like people like pissing on balloons or something. There's like
what?
I don't know. I stole it from a movie. It's like, I don't care if you're a pansexual, trisexual, omnisexual, or one of those people that likes tinkling on balloons. Don't drag me into your personal hell. I'm paraphrasing. It was Dan Aykroyd, I guess. It was like, get him, Dan.
Yeah, Dan Aykroyd's funny anyway.
That dude used to hang out with the BDR crew up in Canada. That's Hell's Angels, folks.
Is he dead or alive?
He was still alive. Talks about conspiracy stuff.
I haven't seen him in forever.
Commercials, and he does talks and stuff. Actually, bro, apparently he's really kind of cool guy. He does paranormal talk sometimes and conspiracy stuff. Anyway, folks.
Well,
with this hard segue, it's like, come back here. It's like the guy on the Segway chasing a guy on a pogo stick. Come back here. You're like, no.
I had a Rocky and Bullwinkle flashback on that one.
It's like cops. They had that. Was it Pacific Blue? The bike cops.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, that Shannon Moakler.
Yeah.
Blonde chick. I love her features.
And then there was the newer seasons. There was this one girl. She was tall, curly hair. I don't know if she was
she the brunette.
I don't know if she was black or Latin, but she was one of those two.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't think of her name, but God.
Oh yeah, those were the names.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Anyway, folks, way off on a tangent there. Yeah, let's see what kind of articles we got today. Oh, from Reason.com. January 4th, not too long ago, 2019.
A birthday!
Say it's your birthday. We celebrate Saddam Hussein on January 4th. Saddam Hussein Appreciation Day. Honduran-American Day.
Jesus.
The only man to support Saddam. The only country to support Saddam Hussein. No,
you are full of...
His own people didn't really support him that much. Hondurans love him, though. No.
Keep in mind, folks, he's sober tonight.
Oh, Lord. Trump trade war is harming the craft booze business. There's a lot of alliteration. And dragging down the rest of the economy in the process. And they talked to Catoctin Creek Distillery. Ooh, that's fun. Oh, yeah. Let's cough some more. Got tuberculosis. Tariff woes show that no one wins a trade war. Yes, that's correct.
Well, duh, it's a tariff war.
Most American, let me see. Trade policy has a tendency to seem abstract, even invisible. Price tags on store shelves don't break out the cost of tariffs. Yes, because they go up without you knowing about it. Unless you're sitting there writing them down. Yeah. But in the long run, it hits your pockets.
Oh, yeah.
In one way or another. All right. Um, It says when a company affected by tariffs sheds staff or fails to expand, there are often additional factors at play. They talked about trade agreements. They're mind numbing and legalistic, built around dull statistics.
Which they are.
Yeah, and it says, who's to say what it would have happened? And yet it's clear that the trade war that Trump started with Europe is having a measurable impact on, among other things, domestic craft liquors.
Liqueur.
Liquor. That's people, it's stuff made in your country, mom and pop outfits, and when they're trying to ship it over there, and they're like, okay, the people in, Flynn Township, Belgium, want to, drink, tan girl liquors, and one of the worst things is they're like, the government puts a tariff on it, and they're like, to get it over to them, the company's going to have to boost the prices. They're like, don't act like it's just not just here. It's everywhere.
Right.
Your prices go up. They mentioned about after the Trump administration erected tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, the European Union, EU, responded by creating new tariffs on goods produced in America.
Erected? Ew!
Oh, yeah. Hey, while we're coughing and tuberculosis and sneezing the plague, we'll get back to our article. Such as bourbon and rye whiskey. As a result, some domestic liquor producers have been largely cut off from the European market. Among those afflicted is Catoctin Creek, a small Virginia distiller that makes rye, gin, and high-quality fruit brandy for the 15-year-old girl in your life. No, I'm just kidding.
Is brandy any good? I've never actually had it.
Well, the sailors say, Brandy, you're a fine girl.
You're a fine girl.
What a good wife you would be.
I forgot it.
Such a fine girl.
I love
You're
it.
like, you just wanted me to sing it. I was like, I know a place on the western shore. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
The sailors want your brandy. It's high quality. It's from Virginia.
Anyway.
Don't know where I'm going. As the Washington Post, or the Washington Compost, as it's called, reports, Catoctin Creek was set to expand in Europe, where the market for American whiskey has grown considerably over the last 15 years. Instead, the tariffs have killed off nearly all the company's European sales ops. The company has instituted a hiring freeze, delayed plans to buy new distilling equipment, hint these guys, and slowed orders from the farmers who supply the grains required for making whiskey. All right, here's a quote. It's essentially decimated our European business and put our expansion on hold. Scott Harris, one of Catoctin Creek's co-founders, tells the Post. And they talked about how the trade war harms everybody in the process. It's a lot of people know it's the entire trouble with the trade war in miniature. It's bad for owners who have lost access to a market with potential for growth. It's bad for consumers in Europe who lose access. It's bad for consumers in the U.S. who are likely to face higher prices, on top of already high prices caused by recent increases in demand for whiskey.
It sounds like it's bad all the way around.
Look, people want to drink it. They really do. It's more or less a dick measuring contest in the long run. They're like, give these people their damn booze. Oh, Lord, you people. Why? Don't pick on the booze. Like, why would you do that? Why would you think you're like, well, we're going to get your booze, you faggots. That's what the people in EU are like in Germany are like, oh, yeah, we like your whiskey. It's great. That's Kaiser von Schroer over there. It's like former
KG
royalty.
used to be.
KG used to be. I know, ich bin Ausländer. I like you Americans and your whiskey, but you're going to pay tariffs if you don't buy our steel without your tariffs. Tough shit. You pay higher prices. That's what they're thinking. It's like, the Germans aren't mad at you for drinking. It just happens. Like, they'll just have to drink shitty German liquor. It's like, we don't have any options. The only thing we have is Jägermeister. You will drink Jägermeister and you'll like it. It's like it's made down the street in old shoes.
Oh, it's not that bad.
It's deer's blood and opium.
Well, that might be true.
It's the blood of...
Because blood does turn kind of blackish brown when it's got no oxygen in it, so...
You know, like old shoe leather, opium, blood. You know, that's where all the flavors go from. Like a half a salt shaker and a half a pepper shaker. You know, it's all good. I like it.
It's really great with root beer.
Put it in your mouth. Let me see. They said it's bad for the manufacturer that makes stills. They said the farmers, the rye and the grains. They said the people that they do business with were affected. They said so will the people and companies who do business with those companies. And it's kind of an expanding spiral of decline. A trade war drags down everything it touches. It produces no winners. It's more or less just a dick measuring contest, and it's kind of a if you can't like bullshit your way out of it, like it's a very short term. It's not even a solution. It's more of a short term. You're like, I hope they don't take this. I hope they budge this. I really don't want to do this. In the long run, nobody wants it.
I kind of feel like if they're using it as a bargaining chip, or you know what I mean, or to get some people to the table, it's got some merit. But beyond that, they're bad. I don't want nothing to do with them. I would prefer them not be there. We'll see how this plays out, but I just
in the long run, it mentioned about prices, but their margins, because they're hoping it's a short term thing, their margins on the short term, they narrow. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the worst things is a lot of people understand these. You're like, oh, it's trade war. It's like, people don't want to budge. They don't want them to begin with, and they'll budge. And it's almost like, hey, both sides need to say this is garbage, you know?
Yeah,
it's not just about booze. I mean,
no, it's much more than that.
People take steel and assholes, and they make things. We buy steel from Germans, and they make, they can make, GE could make certain types of equipment. Those surgical stainless that is made in Germany and make into certain types of specialty razor blades, things like that. A lot of people are like, I was like, oh, tariffs. I was like, no, you end up paying for it. It's a short-term dick measuring contest that nobody wins.
Right.
It's like you like, everybody's disappointed on how small their cocks are. They're like, I really didn't want to see his wang and mine. I know I'm not cutting it.
And there's no porn star at the end for everybody to be happy with on who wins it, because nobody wins. So
there's no prosthetic dicks in a dick measuring contest trade war. Oh Lord, think of it this way, guys. In the long run, it does cost you. It costs you many different ways. It could cost people jobs and expansion. Look, I
think the jobs is where you see it. It's not. Well, I don't want to say where you see it, but where it's most immediately felt.
Fabricating companies and things like that.
Yeah,
they get business from distilleries and breweries and stuff. And I was like, they don't need a new conical fermenter. That could be 3 or 4 days worth of work somebody's going to miss. They could end up having to cut somebody back part time at a small business, or hey, we got to lay off Billy, the 23-year-old with a newborn, and you're like, oh, that's not true. I said, the fuck it doesn't, That's in the long run. You're like, we have to, we can't speculate. If they speculate the wrong way, they could be sitting on inventory and equipment they don't have money for.
Yeah,
and they're like, you only get 60 days credit if you're lucky.
And think about it like this. I mean, even when I know this isn't exactly a tariff, but it's kind of bringing back the same principle. Is when you had the recession and all the prices started going up, and then you had Obamacare passed with all these companies had to do all the additional medical care. Well, a lot of like Walmart and stuff, they stopped making their employees full time.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of part time employees, but they didn't do any full time, so they could save costs on benefits.
Less than 30 hours.
It's the same. It's the same principle as there's no jobs created. There's no jobs for the labor to go into. It's the same principle.
It kind of hurts you in the long run. It's it's bad business. It's bad economics. It's like nobody ever wants to admit that they're like, yeah, we're going to support Americans with this. It's like, no, look, you're good in the economic game when you're able to, you can enable people to do better business quicker. And that's all it takes. You look at nations that are dying economically,
Venezuela.
They're depending on things like tariffs.
Venezuela.
Tariffs are not good business. Good business is good business. Turning over inventory every, such days, that's important. Things like that. Logistics, getting it to the people, good credit standards. Like, you live in a country where the businesses can't get good credit, they're not going to get, they're going to get 30-day terms. They're not going to get, they'll get 15% notes or something like that. And believe me, if you can't get, a credit line for like, say you're like a medium-sized business and you can't get 60-day note for inventory or something like that, and you're like, you can't turn over inventory, this kind of shit doesn't help.
No, it makes it worse.
And there's less people who can do business. There's less people to do business with, and it screws you in the long run. Oh, Lord. Let's go on to the next article.
Next article.
From Navy Times, Off-Duty Military Culture, January 7th, 2019. Heathens hold religious service rooted in Norse. Oh, I screwed that one up. I could have sang it really nicely. Norse paganism aboard aircraft carrier. You're like, don't.
Take two.
What you like? Military culture, January 7, 2019.
I meant just read it.
It says, heathens hold religious services rooted in Norse paganism aboard aircraft carrier by J.D. Simpkins.
And I still think it's funny. They call it heathenry.
It's almost like falconry.
Yeah, exactly.
Like holding your arm out like this and like the falcon, come on, trash bird. It was like my trained pigeons, the trash birds. That's a knockoff. Pepe the frog. His cousin is Peck the trash bird.
Oh,
It's like, come on, Peck. Like the faithful trash bird. He shows up to make fun.
Is he the trash panda's brother?
No, like Peck is like this. He shows up. And he's a giant racist.
I was joking on the Huntsville team.
Oh, I know. I hope they're as good as their mascot. So, like, they suck. They'll end up the trash birds. Shit birds.
There you go.
They'll be like these brown, like, these sludge animals, like coming out of like a waste pond. Like, not even like benevolent trash pandas. You'll be... fucking shit birds. Fucking last place, malarkey hounds or whatever. Anyway, heathenry is experiencing a resurgence. They're like, what's heathenry? The polytheistic. Oh, yes. Not polyatheist.
My polyatheist friend.
Polytheistic religion, one that traces its origin to Norse myths, like that tell all of the universe creation and prophecy its destructive end, was at one time stifled following the end of the Viking Age and the subsequent spread of Christianity. One such collection of myths, the Prose Edda, which is authored by Icelandic historian, poet, and politician Snorri Sturluson, which is a fucking dope-ass name, sometime around the year 1220, provides much of what the modern world knows about Norse mythology. Yggdrasil, which is like the tree.
Yeah, that's the world tree.
The world tree, Asgard, and Asir, that's the tribe of gods, and goddesses with familiar names like Odin, Odin All-Father.
Well, correct. Odin's a god, not a goddess. You
Well,
said
no,
said
it's
goddess.
just a tribe of gods and goddesses with familiar names.
See, I just heard goddess. Okay.
Like Odin, which is Odin All-Father, Thor, Loki, Frigg, and Odin. And now, did I cut in front of you?
No. I was actually thinking that we call it Odin, but I think, like the way it's supposed to be, or traditionally, there's a W in there, so it's actually Woden, I think. But don't quote me on that. I was kind of a mythology geek back in the day.
Now, nearly 800 years after Sturluson's era, a small group of sailors aboard the aircraft carrier John C. Stennis, I used to know somebody on there, has adopted these deities as the pillars of their religion, according to a Navy release. And they mention about a chapel on board. They don't have a chaplain per se. They have a lay leader. Like we had lay leaders, because we weren't big enough to actually have a chaplain, but our ship did. It had lay leaders, but our unit, or not our unit, like, you suck these units. I'm not talking about our squadron. Our squadron had its own chaplain. But anyway, folks, I think is if there's enough people if there's enough people on a ship that like prescribe a certain religion, they're allowed to have a lay leader or be recognized, and I think that's part of what they were getting at. And this one gentleman is their senior practitioner of heathenry.
I can't get over the name. It's hilarious as crap. There's got to be like an official something else besides heathenry, because that just sounds like something like that's what back in the day the crusading Christians would call it. Damn the heathens.
They mentioned the gentleman. His name was Wood. He's Petty Officer Wood. Not a terrible last name.
Petty Wood.
No, Petty Officer Wood.
But Petty Wood.
Technically, he's an aviation electrician's mate, which actually is a pretty dope name as long as you can get. He got promoted pretty good, so he's a second class. Means he had to have been halfway smart.
Right.
It said he was just in high school when he enrolled in the mythology class.
Oh.
And they the gentleman said, opened my eyes to the Nordic gods. From there, he examined the famous Eddas, like Sturluson's, to learn more, eventually coming to the realization that he identified with the polytheistic faith in a way he never had with Catholicism. Said it didn't take long before the sailor discovered a group of like-minded heathens in his hometown of San Diego, one that helped cement his perception of his newfound faith and his place in the community. I mentioned about their surrogate family. They helped him understand religion, and with their help, they transitioned from someone who was just interested to somebody who was versed enough to lead others in prayer. And he went through a process to get certified to lead services. It says he encourages others with their inquisitiveness of heathenry to attend a sumbel. That sounds kind of cool. A ceremony traditionally consisting of toasting and reciting poems or songs.
Is there mead?
That'd be nice. I had to go through here and read this, but it says there was another gentleman who was born in Norway, raised in Minnesota. Guy went to Lutheran services with his parents, but he felt forced. Knew that feeling. Never felt like he connected with anything spiritual until he visited Norway and discovered a group of heathens.
I think we all know that feeling coming from the South.
Yeah, well, I wasn't even a Baptist. I'm a Lutheran. Well, Matt Freemat. Well, we won't go there, but
let's not. Because we both got baggage on that department.
Yeah. Well, I don't belong to the Honduran pagan church, but
I don't either, but I need to.
The Somali, I don't know what a Somali. Well, I missed the joke there. Somewhere there, so it's like the Honduran pagan church. It's gonna be like the Somali paganistic outreach.
Yeah, they'd probably go probably like look back at the Incan or Mayan gods and their mythology, and it'd probably be something based off of that.
Haile Selassie is my man.
Huh?
Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. I think he was the last king of Ethiopia before the Italians attacked around.
Okay.
And he was the one who gave the Rastas, the Rastafarians. He was like one of their. He was very. I guess he was like the spiritual, like a lay leader in like the beginning of the Rastafarian movement.
Yeah.
And he was like a king of Ethiopia. He was a pretty dope guy, but he got overthrown. It happens. There's a General Patrick Flynn around every corner. They said that rumors surround the religion, and they say that followers, like the gentleman mentioned, who said he's fielded inquiries about everything from whether they perform ritualistic animal sacrifices to whether they're racial supremacists. Part of an offshoot of like the runic, like people follow the runic type religions and stuff like that, is there's a thing like a Nordics that it's kind of like a racial like thing, and it's big in prisons. Certain prisons, they have like their own like crews and stuff, but apparently they're true to like the kind of spirit here. No matter the chasmic disconnect between heathenry followers and those oblivious to its tenets, there's no denying that the religion has gained a foothold, however small, in the U.S. military. Just last April, a soldier from the 795th Impede Battalion, this military police, was granted accommodation to grow facial hair as part of his pagan faith. In observance of your heathen Norse pagan faith, you may wear a beard, in accordance with Army uniform and grooming standards for soldiers with approved religious accommodations. The soldier's commander, Colonel Curtis Schroeder, wrote in the memo approving the soldier's request. And in 2013, the image of Mjolnir, which is the hammer, commonly known as the Hammer of Thor, was added to the list of symbols that can be used on veterans' headstones,
Which I think is badass.
just as those as Arlington National Cemetery. And they said the strides of religious freedom should help dispel outlandish myths like those disputed. Heathenry is a religion of peace and community. He said, it helped me connect with people on the ship that I would have just passed by.
See, I think what's really cool about this, because, you know, we just try to stay away from all this religious stuff because that's just not our forte and what we're not into. But what kind of was cool about this was it was religious freedom, and because we're all about freedoms and independence and letting people live their own lives as long as they don't hurt anybody or take their stuff. This is perfect example of how you can do that in a religious aspect. Even the U.S. government is doing something. What's the word I'm looking for? In the right direction,
yes,
without ridiculing anybody. I dig it.
Acknowledgement.
Bingo.
I guess that a lot of fringe religions, and they've learned, like the American Indian Church, that's the one that was one of the two groups that fought for the right to have peyote.
Yeah.
And the spiritual services they have, and they were big on, which is funny because the hippies are the ones destroying peyote. But
sounds oxymoronic, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Just people abuse it, and it's just supposed to be a sacrament to somebody, and
it's a ceremonial deal.
Yeah.
Really, a lot of vision quests and things of that nature.
I've told you before. Like, I feel that way about marijuana. I feel like I hate seeing people perma-fried because it's a process, and I honestly think it's a spiritual process. I think it's, it's staying stoned. I'm like, your body's supposed to process. You're supposed to,
In fact, tobacco is actually another one of those things that was used in a lot of those ceremonies too. But we're talking about the straight tobacco, not what you see with the chemicals and all the crap.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Completely different.
What the Duke of Marlborough initially meant for tobacco to be.
Yeah.
That's where the Marlboro's gets their name from, the Duke of Marlboro.
Oh, okay.
Because they started making... The king didn't like tobacco, like in the Virginia colonies and Roanoke and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like tobacco, like the king didn't like it, but they made money in the New World, and everybody liked smoking tobacco. Everybody had in their pipe and blowing smoke all over the place. And anyway, that's how it kind of got popular. But there's some people couldn't stand the way it smelled, like burning ass leaves around here. But anyway, folks, yeah, we're almost we are at the 30-minute mark. We're
told you, man.
How about this, folks?
Welcome to the new format, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll leave you with some positive affirmations. Talked with somebody today, and the thing is that bad things in your life should give you kind of a reminder to remember the opportunity for good things. A gentleman mentioned about how he had really bad experience with his dad, and I mentioned it could give you an opportunity to be twice as much as your dad was. And you're like, your wife left you, and then I said it's an opportunity to spend time with people who want to be with you. Mm-hmm. I mentioned about getting fired. Guy from The Art of Charm got canned, and he started his own podcast. And the thing is, he wanted to start his own, but maybe he needed the push. Somebody lit the fire under his ass, and
Fire.
Had
to. Couldn't resist.
But folks, seriously, it's just positive affirmations. It's he's like, well, how do you deal with this? How do you do that? And I was just like, guys, it's something crap like that happens is like you're like, I'm that much closer. Somebody does you wrong. I actually told people to spin it and take care of the people that you do have. The people that you love or the people you might love, and try to do it twice over better for them. It's like I mentioned, somebody didn't want to hang out with me anymore, but you find out like a friend of yours or even a distant friend or a family member, they're like, they're flying back from a funeral, and they're like, pick them up from the airport. Spend that little bit of time with them. Remember their birthday and tell them, happy birthday, or hey, I'm going to forget your birthday. I want you to have a happy birthday. I want you to enjoy it. It's something small like that. Like you can spin the negative to positive, and I just wish people knew that. And any closing words?
No, I'm totally agreeing with you on the spin the negative to positive, because the negative to positive, that's all about outlook. And that is completely within your control. A lot of times we get a lot of negativity, and that's all we see in our lives. But that just should make the positive more important and give you more reasons to be positive, because you see all the negative, you don't like it, so change it. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's not. I understand that, but you got to start somewhere. Take one thing and that you think is negative and find a way to turn it into a positive. You do that piece by piece over time, and not only will you be a better person, but you'll have a better life too.
Feel you. Well, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Please take care of yourselves.
Because we tapped it, so we're going to wrap it.
Wrap it up. Please take care of yourselves. Take care of others. Don't forget to love and be loved the same. Love yourselves.
Love you, bitches.
All right. Many blessings. Have a good one.